This is the terrible story I will tell on Halloween. I'm Jane, 21 years old, working for an auto garage in town. Just like every year, the streets, shops, and homes are filled with Halloween decorations. One morning while walking, I was attracted to a group of people gathering on the sidewalk. When we got closer to see, people were enjoying themselves, taking pictures with a mannequin hanging from a tree. The mannequin was female, wearing a white dress with lots of stains and long, scraggly brown hair, body covered in bruises. The face was pale with a haunting expression, her saucer eyes wide open, mouth wide open with bleeding stains. I and everyone there were amazed at such an uncanny and realistic mannequin. I also enjoy taking photos with the mannequin, then sharing it on social networks to immerse in the Halloween atmosphere. My photo quickly had a large amount of interactions. "Yo, it's really like that girl's hanging right behind you." Reading that comment from a friend, I laughed out loud. One evening about 3 days later, I was on my way home from work, quite late because the shop was very busy that day. There was a group of people gathering on the street. I slowed down and realized that was the place where the famous mannequin was decorated. It was well known for its realistic details, I thought, until I saw a cop car parked nearby. Out of curiosity, I got out of the car to find out what's going on. Trying to squeeze through the scene before my eyes was so terrifying that I immediately felt nauseous. The mannequin had her flesh torn and skin dangling and was now crawling with maggots, and a terrible stench arose. Its face was also much paler and seemed to be puffing out. "Oh my God, that's a real person, not a Halloween decoration!" The people standing around started talking to each other. Immediately I shivered, a cold running down my spine. The police are blocking the scene and asking everyone to disperse to make it easier for the coroners to investigate. I returned home haunted by that woman's appearance. Looking back at the photo, I realized I was taking a photo with a hanging corpse. She was looking at me as if she knew I was looking at her through the phone. The creepy smile was full of blood. The eyes were full of pain and hatred. I was startled and zoomed in on the photo to look closely. That creepy smile has since disappeared. I hastily deleted the photo and tried to do chores around the house to not think about it anymore. But that whole evening, I was constantly haunted by a feeling of uneasiness that I don't know why is there. I went to my room early, trying to relieve my anxiety by playing games. After a while, I decided to go downstairs to get some snacks. As soon as I looked towards the door, I was startled and screamed loudly when I saw the silhouette of a woman wearing a white dress with long flowing hair at the door. "Are you all right?" It turned out to be my mother. My heart skipped a beat. I acted as if nothing happened. I told my mother it was okay, and I went to bed and covered myself with the blanket. I don't remember what time it was when I woke up. The feeling of something touching my hair and nose makes me uncomfortable. As I slowly opened my eyes, I saw a foot hovering right in front of me. I looked up. The hanging woman's body was looking at me with a rotten face and a bloody smile. I was so scared that I couldn't open my mouth or move. Suddenly, the body's head fell right in front of me. That smile and eyes right before my eyes. I jolted from my bed with all my strength, eyes still closed shut, screamed my lungs out. I ran down to the living room. The loud scream woke everyone in my home up. The whole night my parents were with me because I was so panicked. 2 days later, the town news reported on the incident that the decorative mannequin on the street was actually the corpse of a hanged woman. The girl's identity was discovered. Her name was Hannah, 20 years old. She was murdered by her vile, cruel, junkie boyfriend. After that, I was traumatized by girls with long hair wearing white clothes, especially white dresses. One evening, I worked overtime at the garage. At that time, around 11 a.m., a Toyota Camry entered the garage with its warning lights flashing continuously. I ran out to find the situation. Stepping out of the car was a girl with long hair, wearing a white dress that covered most of her legs. She didn't look at me, but was still bending down to get something from the car. I started to feel nervous. I asked her what help she needed. She said there was a problem with her car's brakes, causing her to almost have an accident, and she wanted me to check it for her. She stood up straight and looked at me, the face that I knew too well. She smiled and introduced herself as Hannah. My name is Ethan. I live alone in a small town in the southern United States. My work takes up a lot of time in a day. I have to leave the house at 8 a.m. and return at 7 p.m. The area around my house was quite empty until the last few months. A family of a young couple and their daughter moved in. They weren't very friendly, so I only greeted them briefly in some first meetings. When I came home from work in the evening, I saw a little girl sitting on the side of the road wearing thin clothes in the cold winter. After a few questions, I realized that the girl was the child of a young couple next door. The girl was about 5 years old, shivering, her eyes fixated on the ground. When she heard me ask, she just looked up, looked at me with innocent, puffy eyes, and did not answer. I was about to help her stand up, but suddenly her mother's scolding sound came from afar. She is Kate, about 35 years old, with a thin body and some bruises on her face. I greeted Kate in a friendly manner, but she ignored me. She roughly pulled her daughter into the house and scolded her repeatedly, causing her to cry in fear. That night while I was sleeping, the sound of the couple arguing and the loud cry of the neighbor's daughter woke me up. This wasn't the first night like that. Since they moved in, I was often bothered by loud arguments. I'm quite uncomfortable. It's been a long day of work, so I really want to rest. But it's a private matter of their family, so I'm not feeling comfortable about reminding them and instead choose to keep quiet. The frequency of the couple's arguments is increasing. They use harsh words and insult each other. Sometimes there is a mother's yelling at her daughter, followed by her loud crying. I feel sorry for her when she has to live in such an environment. A few days later, that house felt strangely quiet. They must have resolved their conflicts, I thought. Another evening, I came home later than usual. On the dirt road leading to the house, I saw Kate's daughter again. This time she dressed more warmly. The little girl no longer sat with her head down, holding a toy shovel and diligently digging down the dirt road. I approached her and gently asked her what she was doing here. Her face was much brighter. Her innocent voice answered me, "I dig graves to bury people." That innocent voice told me that I was following my mother's actions the previous evening. I looked towards the neighbor's house in fear. Kate's figure standing in the door startled me. Her eyes were sharp and a bit angry. Kate slowly approached, pulled her daughter's hand, and went into the house without saying a word. Early the next morning, I heard loud crying and a very strong banging on the door. Hurrying to open the door, I saw a little girl with messy hair and disheveled clothes crying loudly while pointing towards her house. A series of questions arose in my mind. Walking towards the house, I immediately felt a cold chill running down my spine. In the house's messy living room, Kate hanged herself, her body floating, her face pale. I felt like my body was frozen shut, so scared that I couldn't move. My mind went all blank, my ears were ringing. The girl's cry pulled me back to reality. Immediately, I smelled a terrible stench. Taking the girl back to my house, I quickly called the police. After investigation, the police concluded that Kate's death was due to her hanging herself. Even more horrifying, they discovered Kate's husband's body buried behind the garden. The body was determined to have been dead for about 5 days and was decomposing. Kate herself attacked and murdered her husband, and then she ended her own life. Kate's daughter fell asleep in my arms because she was tired. Looking at the poor girl, I felt sorry for her unhappy childhood and having to witness so many terrible things. The girl was taken to live with her aunt in rural California, 300 kilometers from her old home. I think her parents' married life is not happy. The bruises on Kate's body are most likely caused by her husband's violence. Kate only acted spontaneously when she murdered her husband due to the life of too much pain and repression she had endured in the past.